Have you ever watched something that completely rewired your brain chemistry?
A procedural network drama might not be your usual pick, but it's ours.
This is The Buddie System, a 911 deep dive podcast hosted by three friends who have DM'd each other enough character dissertations to earn a PhD in media literacy. I'm Han, coming to you straight from the characters' heads.
I'm Sil, bringing you to the observation deck.
And I'm Rachel, connecting the dots with my red string. With our powers combined,
No stone is left unturned.
and no Buddie is left behind.
This episode brought to you by Apology Waffles. I made them just for you. No, what is it? What does he say? Your favorite.
Your favorite.
Hold on, let me do it again. This episode brought to you by Apology Waffles. Your favorite. Welcome to Dispatch. What's on call this week?
This week we are discussing Season 2, Episode 14, titled Broken. Just like we are.
Yep.
Wow. Felt. Written by Juan Carlos Cotto. Directed by Bradley Bucher. And it originally aired.
I don't know why we go so hard anytime it's Bradley Bucher on the call.
Because we're Bradley Bucher's number one fans, obviously. This originally aired Monday, April 15th in 2019. Rachel, hit us with those emergencies of the week since there aren't calls because shit's broken.
Everything is broken. So there aren't really calls. They're more like just emergencies that somehow get notified to to the responders, right? So we called them emergencies of the week instead of calls of the week. The first one is if it ain't broke, don't fix it, which is the emergency, the titular emergency, where the 911 system, CAD, computer aided dispatch, goes down and everyone has to go back to basics, operating emergencies manually, and precautions are taken in case the system was hacked. But it turns out to have just been an electrical fire at their, I think it was the communications hub or something. So that impacts everything else. Our next main emergency that we see is Welcome to the Neighborhood, where a family moves into their new dream home only for explosions to erupt across the neighborhood, leaving the young son trapped inside the new house. The other emergency that is notable in this episode is checkout time, 11 a.m., where after being sent to the wrong address due to dispatch going analog, the 119 make it just in time to assist a woman giving birth in the lobby of a hotel, only for her to immediately go into shock. So this is an interesting episode, we thought when we were watching it, because there aren't a lot of character arc per se.
Progressions. Yeah, there's not a lot of forward movement.
It kind of struck me as like the way to really kind of reset for this last third of the season, because this is episode 14. So there's only 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, like 5 more episodes. But because we had so much focusing on the Chimney and Maddie and Doug disaster scare of it all, which would have been, you know, like the end of 10, and then we have 11, 12, and 13. So that's 3 episodes, and we came back to the Doug of it all.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of seems like the
transition,
the propulsion to get us to the rest of the season. Yeah, I'd love to hear some more of your guys' thoughts. And then I just go right into my own thought. You speak. What are your thoughts?
I really like this episode. I like when we get to see our characters kind of really put out of their comfort zone, which, like, I guess they kind of
always are,
but like that's more in like a regular way. This was just like crazy out of everyone's comfort zone, except for the people who like used to do the system in an old school way.
Mm-hmm. So like Sue and Josh.
Yeah, basically. And I think Bobby said he'd experienced something like this once before, so he was like very chill. So I like whenever we get to see something that's a little bit more outside our regular sphere of, I don't know how to word it, just like our regular order of business. So I liked the whole concept of it. I miss whenever we are not heavily focusing on character arcs, because that is like my bread and butter when I'm watching shows. So like I have a hard time like latching onto things emotionally without that. But I think there's a lot of like foreshadowing or like parallels and like other interesting stuff that we can hone in on and talk about instead. So yeah, I think it's an interesting episode.
There's some character development in terms of Bobby and Michael's relationship, I would say. But everyone else is kind of like, doing a lot of things, responding to emergencies. I kind of like the Bobby and Michael like friendship.
Yeah.
You know, how they get through this specific hurdle, because I think after this they get, they become even more like besties.
So cute.
Co-husbands.
But either way, we'll get into that whole ordeal later. Other than that, I don't know, there was like some parts that were like that struck me emotionally, and I don't know, overall a good episode. There's a lot of parallels, a lot of foreshadowing. We'll get into that.
Do you think, I guess I forgot to mention it because my brain is just like, it goes without saying, because we're wrapping up. Well, not wrapping up, but like we're seeing the direct aftermath of what happened with Maddie and Chimney.
Yes.
So like, I think that is kind of where the emotionality is, but because they're ignoring it, we're also not seeing a lot of it. So like what we do find out is literally just what they say in dialogue. Like we're not seeing it. And it's not a lot of the episode, but when we do... I like the Maddie and I always love the Maddie and Chimney stuff.
Oh, of course.
Like especially the scene with them at the end, even though it makes me want to die a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting thing, what you just said, Han, with the whole, because the characters are ignoring it, the audience is kind of ignoring it too. Like it's funny because it is spoken about so explicitly. But they're just talking about it. And like even Maddie says, like, I'm done talking about it, Yeah. So we don't really get to see like the inner world, because there's so much going on that you can't really spend a lot of time on the introspection of it all.
Because they've already been doing that a lot.
I did like how it was kind of like a true ensemble episode, because we got a little bit of everybody. In this episode. Like we even got Harry, we got May, we got a little bit of Athena, we got, everybody over at Dispatch, like Linda even. It felt like, well, with Juan Carlos Cotto, the last episode that he did, or actually the first episode that he wrote for 911 was Dosed, which was also like a very ensemble. Yeah. Like I feel it just juggled people's storylines very well, and that's probably helped with the fact that it was like such a large kind of emergency that everybody had to be like hands on deck sort of thing. But it, like, everybody had a shining moment in this episode, and it felt really cohesive and juggled very well. So I really appreciated that too. Should we get into the deep stuff? Should we? I never know a good transition for this one unless there's a pun. Let's just dive deep. Let's just deep dive. Let's dive into the deep end. We're gonna need the jaws of life over here. We're in deep dive now. This is why we have segment intros. Yeah. We don't need transitions.
No, that's true. That's true.
All right, now that we're 40 feet deep, let's get into deep dive.
Anyway, do we have press articles to talk about?
Not really.
Did you have one? I thought you said you had one.
I had one. I thought it was an interview. It is not an interview. It was mostly like a reactionary article about the episode, and it was like, is this the end of Chimney and Maddie? Because that would be like such a shocking thing to be watching like live with, all of this build up to Madney, and then the Doug, and then calling it off kind of. And it's like we know what happens. So we're like, it's going to be fine. But, people watching live, like for anyone who was watching this live, did you actually think, I know Chimney said like, it's not goodbye, it's just not right now. Did you actually think they were like killing the ship? Because that would be so like, oh my God, that would be awful. It seems like a very Grey's Anatomy thing to do, though. And correct me if I'm
Luckily,
wrong.
Shonda Rhimes does not run this show.
No, but Ryan Murphy and Tim Minear do, so who knows? Anyway, so it was just kind of a reactionary article, kind of in shock about the fact that we as an audience and Maddie and Chimney went through all of that trauma and for them just to be like, well, not now. And it seems kind of like anticlimactic and a little disappointing, but it'll be fine. So that's kind of all I found for press articles. I'm sure I missed something, but I didn't really see any interviews, which I guess kind of makes sense because there were a lot in the last few. Because it was.
I think they tend to do more interviews and send people out when it's a big episode for them. And I don't think this was like specifically a big one. And then like they probably just had
reviews and reaction. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I know we wanted to speak about an article or an interview with Oliver that came out a couple weeks before this episode. So I think it was during the week of 2/12, but it seems a little more appropriate to talk about it now. Ta-da. That was a transition. Yes.
Oh my God, incredible.
There was one interview that I found with Oliver Stark, just kind of talking about Buck in general. Oliver was kind of talking about how, in response to a question of how Buck could be a TV character that we've seen a lot of before, where a good-looking guy gets all the ladies, but he's become much more than that. And Oliver reflects that they wrote Buck as very three-dimensional. So it wasn't like him necessarily infusing that where it wasn't, but he does feel like there aren't many characters where one moment they get to be like a swashbuckling hero and the next really sensitive and really vulnerable. And it's important for him to show that you can be both at the same time. He also mentioned a little bit about an episode coming up, 215, which I think is the Ocean's 911 episode. And he says in this article that it's one of his favorite episodes they've done so far. And he immediately texted Tim Minear and said, "What I love about this episode is that I can't imagine any other show doing it." So just a little preview for 215. And I think we've kind of, or at least what I've kind of gathered, if Oliver brings up a specific episode and talks about how excited he is, it's going to be a good episode. Like he wouldn't say otherwise. He's just like, and the question wasn't even about that. It was just like, he brought it up on his own. And then the last thing, the last thing that I thought was a fun little snippet was he was asked, how does Oliver relate to Buck? And he said it's the huge heart that Buck has, always willing to put himself out there for other people. And the more that he gets to play Buck has kind of sneaked back into him as a person. He says it's this weird kind of symbiotic relationship where the more I play him, the better a person Oliver becomes. It's been really lovely to grow together. And I thought that was so sweet.
That's very cute.
And it's just like, I feel like you can really see the kind of very much two sides of the same coin.
You have some strings this week?
I think we have a ball of string.
Okay.
Between us.
We have a whole ball of yarn.
A little ball of yarn. I've connected the dots.
You didn't connect shit.
Because we have a couple things in our little red string corner that we want to talk about. So let's break them up into their own separate things between the two of us. So in this episode, the little FBI people, who I was really suspicious of the first time I watched it.
Me too. I was really suspicious of them. They were really shady.
Yes, in this episode, their FBI people mention stuff about, last year there was the ransom attacks and da-da-da-da-da. That is referencing a real event. That was the cyber attack that hobbled Atlanta in March of 2018. So when they say last year, they mean 2018. And that was a ransom attack, which is a malicious software that cripples the victim's computer or network and blocks access to important data until a ransom is paid to unlock it. Obviously, then ransom. And it's basically like a hostage situation of information. And this hack with Atlanta was notable because it was the largest successful breach of security for a major American city by ransomware, potentially affecting up to 6 million people. So that's why it got like so many people talking. Because of the attack, the city of Atlanta cooperated with the FBI, Homeland Security, Secret Service, hired security firms, and many government computers were advised to stay powered off until 5 days later, which is interesting too, because it's like, how can you get any work done? And it shows how like crippling this kind of attack can be.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently the ransom demand amounted to about $50,000 in Bitcoin. So interesting choices there. But with the ransom attack, some major systems were not affected, including those for 911 calls and control of wastewater treatment. So in this instance, 911 dispatch was not affected, but other city government things and resources were scrambled for days after. And I think it took a couple days for Atlanta to publicly announce, like, yes, they are dealing with a ransomware, because I guess they were trying to figure it out. So that was the incident that they were mentioning in the episode. I found a couple more instances where there were cyber attacks or ransomware attacks. Actually, just about a week after the Atlanta one, there was the Baltimore 911 emergency system was hit by a cyber attack. So this was also in March of 2018. And it was also notable because it was the second cyber attack on a major US city within the last week, but there were no indications that it was a related incident, like from the same bad actors. The 911 dispatch itself wasn't hacked. So I don't know exactly how that worked, but there was also a 911 outage in Massachusetts of this year from June, and it said it was caused by a computer firewall, not a cyber attack, officials reported. So I thought that was kind of funny because even though that was happening, I was about to say this year, it's not this year anymore. That happened in June, like more recently. That kind of reflects what happened in the episode itself. And then there was an interesting article that I found. It was talking about how 911 call centers are so easy to take down for hackers. Like, why is it so hard to stop them? And the article basically just talked about how 911 dispatch is the perfect target because it can't afford to be down because it's such a pivotal service. And it's a system that relies on redundancy, meaning that call centers that are taken out of service by a hacking attack can work around the disruption by shutting down the computer-aided dispatch system. Oh, CAD. And sharing information person to person or by sending calls to a nearby center. So basically how they had to do everything kind of analog by the book. It kind of highlights how, like, the weak spots of 911 systems, that it doesn't really accommodate for the ways that people communicate in the modern world, like texting, FaceTime, all that stuff. I know there have been efforts to make 911 more accessible and modernize it. So they kind of call this the next generation 911. But, with increased connectivity, pros and cons to all of it, it opens the modern systems to new potential modes of attack. So no matter how sophisticated a defense, it takes just like one vulnerability to let hackers in, basically. So it's never going to be a perfect system, but it can always get better. And I think these instances where, unfortunately, people who are intending to do harm or get rich quick schemes, which just seems like a dumb idea, right? But I mean, they have to be smart because they're hacking, but dumb idea because come on. So while it's bad because I don't have to talk about the morality of it really, but it's bad because things like 911 and like government systems are necessities, right?
Mm-hmm.
For cities and first responders to operate. You can look at the silver lining and being like, okay, well, this has highlighted an area where we need to improve it, and then just like make things better from there. So a little pro and con, looking at the bright side.
I also found a recent-ish cyber attack to talk about that like wouldn't really be of note except for the punchline. That's going to be really dumb. Anyway, this happened in Pennsylvania.
Oh.
The county like just north of Philadelphia. And it was last January and it lasted 9 days. It was down for 9 days.
Wait, the 911 system?
Mm-hmm. CAD was down for 9 days. So they were relying on phone and radio communication.
Wow. That's rough.
Which, yes. So the 9 days thing, I was like, wow, that's a long ass time. But then the reason I clicked on the article is because it happened in Bucks County.
Stop. That's funny. Aww. Bucks County.
Yeah, Bucks County. I had to. So sorry.
So while in this episode, the CAD system being down was just a fluky thing, due to, I think, that electrical fire somewhere, that they thought was low priority, but it wasn't. I think all of this stuff probably also inspired the opening emergency for season 5, which was the blackout, where there was a ransomware attack for all of like the Los Angeles system.
Yeah. So I also, who knows if this is actual foreshadowing, because I don't know that they have storylines plotted out. But I feel like when they got to this point in season 3, they did it on purpose, because this is 2:14 and in 3:14, that's the taking of dispatch 911. So this was like the fake out, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting because here we have 3 examples and they're all slightly different.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
I like when they do stuff with dispatch. It makes it really interesting for for everyone.
Well, it feels like more high stakes because like it's not only affecting your dispatch call center people, it's affecting your actual first responders, and it's also affecting the people out there.
Yeah.
No, but that's crazy because they went 2, 3, and they skipped 4. Like, seasons. So, I have season 2, you have this. Is there a big
dispatch storyline in 4? They don't do enough at dispatch.
No.
Honestly.
Unless it's Jinx. It's not a dispatch heavy, but it's a weird, fun time.
Oh, in episode 11, First Responders, that's when Sue was hit by the car.
Oh, yeah.
What was the episode where we had the Josh flashbacks to when he first started?
Wasn't it that one? I feel like that would be it. I don't remember too much of that episode.
That's also the same episode where Josh is like doing the Sherlock Mind Palace thing with the shipping containers, which I loved. Now I think we want to talk about foreshadowing stuff, right?
Yeah, just a couple. And I think like normally we just kind of like bring these up willy-nilly because I think we kind of think about them in the moment a lot of the time, or like I do anyway. Yeah. But I actually thought about a couple ahead of time. So
yeah, I think because it wasn't as like deeply character centric, and kind of like what we were saying earlier with our general thoughts, that it kind of feels like a bit of a setup for the last couple like handful of episodes. I think they do like sprinkle some things in here.
But yeah, let us know if you like the like specific foreshadowing section in here, and we'll try and do that going forward. So yeah, I guess the biggest one for me is, God, they really just hammered in the foreshadowing for Shannon dying like so heavily, like from the moment she shows up, even before she gets there, they're foreshadowing it.
I've been talking about it since like at least episode 4 of the season with the elevator thing. Escalator.
Yeah. That was the escalator. Well, now we have by the elevators. with the mother giving birth, who dies for a little bit, and we get to see like that whole speech of him talking about how he's going to be.
He was scared, but
was scared, but now like he is going to do it, and like he wishes that she could see him because he's perfect. And I was like, oh, that's very like Eddie coded. Because even though like she did get to see him grow up a little bit, like I'm sure he still thinks about how much she's missing. But I thought it was really interesting because I feel like they really honed in on it here, because the shot where Bobby comes up and says, I'm sorry, right, to the husband.
Yes, I wanted to talk about this too.
In focus is the husband. And then you have
behind him,
Eddie and Buck. Eddie is in focus. Buck is out of focus.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really they really wanted you to look at Eddie's reaction to this. So I really think that was a purposeful.
They cut to Eddie so much in this episode where he's not really doing anything. Like, he doesn't have any lines. He's just kind of like reaction shot, you know, but it's so many times, not only here, but also at the neighborhood call as well, which I want to get to. But that framing where Eddie is right behind, I think the dad's name is Roger, and then having Buck right behind him too, like visually Buck having Eddie's back again as like a support system. And yeah, like it's not the whole parallel with what Roger says to his wife, Sonia. It's not an exact 1-to-1, but it definitely has that like similar vibe. And I kind of thought, because this seems like paralleling foreshadowing, it's kind of a really sick way to raise expectations, like very subtly, for when Shannon,
it's a miracle.
For when Shannon gets hit by the car. Because the first time I watched this episode, obviously not just now, I was so like, were you guys just like so relieved, shocked, surprised when Sonia did like regain Cole's consciousness? And for some reason, I always forget that when I think about this episode, and I'm like,
I do too. I think
like I could just keep remembering her dying part and not the her coming back part.
Yeah,
I don't know why, because I
think because you don't see a lot of it.
Yeah, but it's like the happy ending. But it's just like, what a way to set up an expectation, right? And then subvert it when push comes to shove with, maybe that wasn't the right choice of words.
Wow, Rachel.
God. I was just like a PSA that we don't hate Shannon on this show.
I love Shannon so much. However, they put her through the ringer, so we're going to point it out.
And there's just jokes, so we got to make them. They're not going to make themselves. They kind of do.
Again, like we said, I think we said in Chimney Begins, like, we can only be serious for so long. Like, we cope with humor. Okay?
Us and Chimney.
So yeah, when it comes to shove, like, they end up subverting that expectation, right? Because they've already shown, like, oh, Sonia was fine, and she came back from not even just the brink of death, but like they called it. They called TOD. And it doesn't happen with Shannon either. So it makes it, I think maybe subconsciously, that's probably why I forget that Sonia comes back. But man, and the whole like, that was a miracle sort of thing. Interesting. I want to bring that up later, maybe in Slowburn. So not just the lobby labor call that we see foreshadows. Not only that call foreshadows Shannon dying, but at the cold open where you have the family with the dad and his 2 kids going up to their dream house because the mom had passed away.
Oh yeah.
So right off the bat, we get a lot of dead moms, like, and they weren't even on Disney at that time.
I was waiting for. Hey, fun fact: Mufasa.
Oh no! It's generational.
I think that's obligatory in any Disney movie. A mom's got to die for the plot,
or a dad, a parent.
Yeah, literally. I sat there. I'm like sitting there just predicting. Okay, so this is what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. Man.
So we're getting a lot of deceased maternal imagery.
And isn't it funny? Just to, sorry, my brain is probably still in like Mufasa land.
No, please.
So I'm like, It's just funny that you have to kill the parents so the hero goes on to their fucking journey. Or it's usually a loved one, yes. So could be whatever.
But I think a lot of times it is the parental figure because that hero has to have an excuse or a reason to leave the nest, essentially. And if, everything is intact at home, they're not going to, it's not the push that they would need. So I think that's why it's so often a parental figure. And of course it's because the hero is probably like younger because they haven't like self-actualized yet. And that is the whole journey. But
yeah, it's like the call to journey, the call to action. That's like what that inciting event is specifically called in the hero's journey.
Yes.
Yeah. I also, just really quick, you don't even have to keep this in. I was just thinking about season 8 as I do. And I was thinking about Eddie pulling up to the new house that he picked out with Buck. And Buck might be somewhere dying.
or okay, yeah.
It's fun.
Oh, boy. Oh, no. Okay, no, for real, though, like, if he actually goes through with it and, like, moves to El Paso for any indeterminate amount of time, that would be a crazy parallel.
Yes.
I just read a fic where he moved to El Paso and Chris made him move him back the same day. Like it was, don't even think he was there 24 hours.
Good.
Yeah.
You tell him, Chris.
He called Buck and he was like, we've decided you're not allowed to make decisions anymore. And therefore Buck is coming to help drive all this shit home. Anyway.
No, I mean, kind of how that needs to happen. Let's be real. Chris needs to. What do we keep saying? Eddie needs to be bonked on the head.
We keep saying that, and then a tree's gonna fall on his fucking head. You know that, right?
Yeah.
He needs to be bonked on the head. Well, maybe it'll shake all the gay thoughts loose. You know?
And then we can point to this clip and just be like, "Thank you, Tim."
Thanks for listening to us. And
thanks for being the Buddy System's #1 fan.
Yeah.
Thanks for being our buddy.
Thank you for being a friend. I don't know why it's a singing day. What?
No, you know what? I think we need to make a parody of that. But thanks for being a buddy. And like something near-death experience and back again.
We can workshop that.
Yeah. But just a little brain nugget.
I think there were a couple other things that I forgot, so sorry. I'll probably bring them up later if they come back to me.
That's fine.
But the last thing I have was actually Rachel. I think because you brought it up when we were talking earlier.
Can I introduce this then?
Yes.
If we had a nickel for every time Buck fell off the ladder of the truck, we would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. This is less foreshadowing for the immediate episodes, and that was just like the imagery to, season 6. So just that imagery of, Buck hanging off the ladder of the truck. In this specific case, the foreshadowing within season 2 is the ladder breaking is obviously going to, if we remember correctly, is going to play a very pivotal part, or why the ladder broke, a pivotal part in the next episode, which is 215, which is Ocean's 911. Also, when we get in, this is the episode where we get introduced to Marty, who, keeps the trucks running with duct tape and spit and chewing gum and paper clip. No, Hen said chewing gum and spit. Marty said duct tape and paper clips. So take your pick of any of those.
Gross.
Yeah, so that will directly impact the next episode in season 2. And the part where the Tommy it flies in where the 217 air support flies in with the water over the neighborhood, and everyone or Bobby realizes it and tells everyone to get under the truck get under the fire truck for cover. Yeah, that's going to come up at the end of this season, but then again in season 4, which are related.
Oh my goodness. Do we need to expand on that? I don't think we need to.
I don't. How many times do we see people going under the truck? That's all we need to say.
Like
how many?
3?
3, and all 3 times. Guess who it is?
Oh, Buckaroo. Buckaroo. So anyway, speaking of Rocco, when he comes in with the water,
We're
and
not
everyone
thirsty.
else is getting under the truck, but Eddie's inside with the kid. And this is so dumb. We don't need to keep this, but it made me crack up because Eddie's like, seriously? And I was like, foreshadowing. He already hated this man.
No, that's funny.
And also Chim was like, back up. And called him. And I was like, yeah, because it's like an afterthought, like a second choice. Anyway.
Oh, dang. Okay. Yeah, that counts.
Seriously?
That's so funny. I love when Eddie's sass comes out. Like,
Same.
serious. And then did you want to talk about Josh's speech?
Okay, yeah. So when Josh is talking to Maddie, like at the end of their shift, and he's like, maybe you just aren't ready. He makes a metaphor comparing like what she's going through to, you wouldn't say to a person who just broke their leg to just walk it off.
Who's going to break their leg?
I don't, these people are diabolical. They're really evil. Anyway.
Yeah. It's that really subtle foreshadowing that we see sometimes that I'm like, oh, I know what you're
They're
doing.
just writing
here.
it going, I have to do the same thing, but still.
Yeah. I think that's all that we've thought of kind of so far for foreshadowing. If we'll probably come across a couple other things throughout the rest of our discussion. So we'll point those out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, one other thing. Just one last little, who wants to take bets in this small world of Los Angeles first responders that Terry Flores of the Dispatch IT is related to Anna Flores.
Oh.
I know it's a very common
I forgot
name.
we talked about this.
But it would
just be funny.
Abby's Tommy was Buck's Tommy, so like, who's to say Terry Flores can't be related to Anna Flores?
New headcanon. They're related.
Oh my God.
They're related. And Terry told Josh about how Eddie treated Anna, and that is why Josh fucking can't stand Eddie on site. And the gay on gay like outsassing thing, but like that too. New headcanon unlocked.
That's funny. So, just saying, I'm sure we're not the first people to say it, but, if Abby's Tommy was Buck's Tommy.
Oh, it would make it actually make sense because it would make his speech at Dispatch when he's talking about like, there's the pre-Glee world and the post-Glee world. And like, you can't judge people for what they had to do to like get by, basically.
Mm-hmm.
If he, in season 8, when he's talking to Buck, and we were like, that speech is actually about Eddie, and that's how it makes sense. But I'm like, if he has actually clocked Eddie,
I mean, we know he's clocked.
thing. Well, yeah, but even more with the Anna thing. Like, if Terry was like, here's all the shit that this man put my cousin through, you'd be like, that is a gay man. You're telling me he had panic attacks when people assumed they were married. Interesting. Anyway.
I think that's it.
Are we ready to rumble? What is going on in my head?
Flashover. Kind of like what Eddie experiences in the house going into Flashover.
What?
Because Flashover is like that lots of fire like at the ceiling and it just goes like that's Flashover. Like when he's right near the bathtub and then it makes everything collapse and he's like, I can't exit.
I don't think that A, we have thought about that since we decided the name for the segment, and B, I don't think we've ever actually defined that on the show. So listeners, in case you didn't know, that's what Flashover is. That's why this segment's called Flashover.
That's why the little, like if you're watching on YouTube, that's why the fire is on the top rather than the bottom in the little graphic.
Don't bring top-bottom discourse into this episode.
Yeah, what are you doing, Rachel? Why are we talking about top-bottom
Fire
discourse?
Yeah, Flashover is when it like goes whoosh, whoosh, whoosh up at the top because it flashes over your head, which I learned when we were looking up things to call the segment names, and I got a little too far into firefighter glossaries of all the different terms, and I'm like, well, how about we do this? And Han and Sil were just like, no, we're not going to do that. Nobody knows what that is. And I'm like, no, but it makes sense because definition here. It was just, no.
One of the rare times you get your literal hat out. You take it from me. You put it on.
The spirit of Buckipedia, you know.
When the spirit of autism possessed you.
Maybe. It's not in a literal sense, but I just
no,
wanted
I know,
it to,
but
like,
the Buckipedia thing is very much like.
I mean, I just retain information.
Speaking of Flashover.
So we have some themes that have shown their faces once again, and that is improvisation has come up again for obvious reasons because shit isn't working and they really have to come up with new/old ways to do things. And impulsivity is a thing again because Eddie Diaz exists.
Yeah. No, but really quickly on the improvisation front, it's kind of a spin on the Help Is Not Coming theme from the Help Is Not Coming episode where you know, dispatch and first responders couldn't really get to the emergencies, not because of any communications failure, but just like from physical obstacles. So this is a kind of turning that on its head, like a mirror to that. And with that, like unforeseen complications with stuff like the labor delivery in the lobby and Maddie and Chim not getting what they had back. It's stuff that like that wasn't part of the plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to throw the plan away and move on accordingly.
Then we have back to basics and starting from scratch, which is really related to improvisation as well. I think that it also ties in with a lot of our characters, especially Maddie and Chim, who kind of do have to kind of have this like not starting over, but like
Pause. Or like reset?
I think it's a reset.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Where it was like they were just like pushed back and have to like kind of try and find normal again.
Yeah. One step forward, two steps back.
Yeah. Shout out Olivia Rodrigo. Then we have, speaking of Maddie and Chimney again, pushing through and trying to like get to the other side of what you are, like the obstacle that you're facing. So that is obviously very, very abundant in the emergencies that we see because, well, any emergency, but especially this week because people are kind of in even more distress and you kind of don't really have as much of an idea of what you're going to be dealing with when you show up. And there's just a lot more to be pushing through.
And then we see that literally with the labor. So like,
well, yeah.
Because that stuck out to me because of how Hen was like, just push. I was like, there's always a moment in like so many of the calls that like encapsulates a particular like large theme of the episode, and it's just like little light bulb moment, at least for me. And I'm like, oh, I see now.
It happens to me sometimes, but themes is not really my forte. So it's normally really obvious ones or really like dark ones, like beating a dead horse. And I think the last theme we have for this week is transitional family dynamics. So we have, speaking of the birth, that family dynamic completely changing, not just because new baby, but like thought the mom was going to die, but now she didn't. And then we have, you know, Bobby and Michael and the Nash Grant family trying to like
work together,
figure out how their family is going to work going forward.
And then the family at the neighborhood call with the new home,
Mhm.
Moving on after the loss of the mom or the wife. So it's kind of like exploring the new like status quo within the family sort of thing, right? So that's what we mean by like,
Or like finding it.
yeah, that's what we mean by like transitional.
Yeah, trying to like
dynamic.
feel out what
life is going to be now.
Mhm. Yeah.
Which I think is also I think that's also like an interesting theme to look at going forward as well for the last few episodes of this season too, because I know we'll get to like the Bobby Begins and that will play a part in it. And well, like the season finale is called This Life We Choose. So
Mhm.
I think that's very much going to, carry over.
Who's cooking? Should we move on to Bobby and Michael?
Yes, let's move into what arc we have for characters. Again, there's not a lot of progression here, but it is like interesting to see the relationship between Bobby and Michael and how that's progressed.
But yeah, I love Bobby and Michael. I miss Bobby and Michael.
Me too. I think this really like this episode kind of helps solidify how they navigate their relationship going forward in that like co-parenting kind of way, once they get over the hump of
whatever this is.
Yeah. I think it was more Michael's problem than Bobby's, let's be real. But how do we want to tackle this? Because I'm still in like kind of begins mode where it's like a lot more chronological.
So I don't think there's a ton to talk about here because we're just trying to focus on like character arcs. So I think really just talk about the inner workings of like how their relationship is growing and changing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would focus on. So I think until this episode, all of the Bobby and Michael interactions have been positive.
And in passing, because I think
the
last time we saw them like interact was when Athena's parents came into town, and Michael was like,
"Better you than me." Peace.
But yeah, like generally positive. Like,
yeah.
I mean, that was Michael kind of throwing Bobby to the wolves a little bit, but like not in
they haven't had any of like butting heads or like a misunderstanding or like anything like that yet. So this is our first look at that. And I think when we have misunderstandings and things like this, it's in storytelling, it's always great because that's how you grow relationships.
Mm-hmm.
At first, you think everything is going great. And they're like bonding over, like being in Harry's life. And
until Michael overhears what Harry says.
Until Michael overhears his kid thinking that he isn't cool. And he takes that shit personally because he's going through a breakup. We find out.
I mean, talk about compartmentalizing and lack thereof.
Yeah. You can't take shit that kids say to you personally.
These are 10-year-olds.
Just any age kid, especially teenagers too.
Yeah.
My nephew used to just say to like random people who try to talk to him, "I don't like you." Like you can't you can't take stuff that kids say to you personally.
I mean, on one hand, they do have a lot of truth to it, but on the other hand, like
flippant.
Yeah.
And some of it, especially when they're talking to their friend, is them trying to look cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like Harry's friend is like, "Yeah, your new dad." So that and Harry doesn't like correct it because in his mind it's like Bobby is kind of
but
like
it is his new dad.
Yeah, a new
father he's getting
figure.
rid of or replacing his dad. But,
no, and I think that's what Michael doesn't realize. Like for a 10-year-old, it can be both. He can have two dads. Like especially growing up around the 118,
it's legal.
But around the 118, like look at Denny with Karen and Hen. It's like a person can have two moms, so why can't Harry have two dads and his mom? That kind of stuff. So like in Harry's head, it's just like, yeah, of course, Bobby's my new dad, and Michael flips out. It's so funny. Well, it's not funny, but like it really gets.
I was just going to say it's kind of funny.
It is kind of funny because, like, I mean, while we were watching it together, we were like, bro,
He takes it
It's
so
not that deep.
seriously. I mean, he grossly overreacts.
Yeah.
And takes it out on both Harry and Bobby, which isn't.
Well, he's projecting his like own fucking insecurities from his like
Mhm.
past fucking relationship because I guess like Glenn doesn't find him fun anymore, which is revealed at the end. So
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Allegedly, because we don't know. We just know that they broke up and he copes with some pie and ice cream, which, you know what, valid.
It was just so valid.
Especially if it's pie that Bobby made.
I know. Meanwhile, Michael's dealing with all of this, like internally and a little externally. Kind of a little how Athena deals with some things too, right? Just like, no, is that accurate? That's not really.
Yeah, it's kind of taking it out on other people
Yeah.
who are conveniently around. Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Thank you for validating that thought. They both have a lot of like fire in them, right? So Bobby is just, being Bobby. He's, teaching all these kids and being cool Captain Bobby and really getting into it. And we know that he loves children and that also probably has to bring up a lot of things for him, which do get addressed when he and Michael speak at length.
But I think he also takes it very seriously and thinks it's super important for obvious reasons unrelated to his job.
Mm.
He takes it very seriously, teaching about fire safety because of his
yes
family dying.
Sorry, it
in
took
a
me a
fire. I was
second.
trying to say it without saying his family dying in a fire.
Yeah, so I mean, it makes sense why he's very adamant about all of that.
Oh, did I tell you about this one time? No. I will derail. You don't want to know.
Now I really want to know, though.
We didn't call. Well, I mean, we didn't call the fire department, but I was really begging to call the fire department. But this was before I started watching 911, so I mean,
It was out of necessity and not fangirling.
out of necessity, actually, and it was my fault.
Oh. Food related?
Oh yeah, oil.
That's not good.
Long story short, I was trying to make these cheese balls. You have to heat the oil up to,
Mhm.
I don't know, a certain degree or whatever. And I had it on the stove, but I covered it so it could heat up faster.
Mhm.
That was my first mistake.
Mhm.
The first, there are more.
No, actually, that was just the mistake because
Okay.
I uncovered it. Okay, maybe it's the second mistake. I mean, the first mistake, then the second mistake was uncovering it because as I uncovered it, whoosh, baboosh.
Kind of like Under Pressure, the first episode of season 2.
And then I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, Mom.
Did you use your fire extinguisher?
No, I used my mom.
You used your mom?
My mom, I don't know. I just told I'm like Googling as I'm like debating on whether we want to call the fire department as the stove is on fire.
Googling, do I call the fire department?
I'm trying to figure because I'm like, I know it's not water.
You're like, how to put it
Water
out.
is
No,
fire.
it's not.
Yeah,
You got to use your fire extinguisher on that.
We didn't have one.
So
Yeah, and then I figured out, I'm like, Mom, I just know we have to cover it.
you do
But
have
with
to cover
what?
it.
We put a pan over it or some kind of like bigger like baking dish on it. But
Mhm.
I mean, it was like, it was getting progressively bigger.
I think we just need best buddy Captain Bobby to give us Fire Safety 101, just as a refresher.
Anyway, Priscilla, get a fire extinguisher in your home. This is your notice. I will not stop bothering you about this. Thank you.
Oh my God. Sorry, we derailed.
This is what we do.
The next time I'm at Walmart or someone tell me.
Yeah, you want an ABC one because that covers most fires that you would have in your home.
Gotcha.
Well, I thought that's because it was on the same network.
Rachel.
Jail.
That was terrible.
It made you
Did
laugh.
you know that ABC invented fire extinguishers?
No, they sell them now because of their new hit show 911.
Listen, at least they would have some merch for 911.
Has the 911 logo on the
That's
fire
the new
extinguisher.
PR box.
That's in the PR box.
so smart,
That
right?
would be great, actually.
Fucking like stress ball. Give me the fire.
No, and like,
No, give me
a
a flame and a
so
flame
like you can get
retardant
flame
thing.
retardant blankets. You can get that. Put the logo on
ABC,
it.
what are we doing?
ABC, as we've said before, hire
Put us on the merch team. Put us in,
got you.
coach. We got you.
We got you back. We got your back.
Anyway, back to Bobby and Michael show.
Fire safety is important, kids.
Fire safety
Yes.
is very important. Please put a fire extinguisher in your home. If you don't have one, the ghost of Bobby Nash's family is going to haunt you.
Man.
Or I hope you're reminded of my oil story.
Which I'm absolutely leaving.
Cautionary tale.
A cautionary tale. I used my mom.
Well, fight or flight.
Yeah.
Back to Bobby and Michael.
Back to the fire safety TED Talks that we just did not have.
TED Talks for 10-year-olds.
Yeah, so Bobby takes these very seriously for obvious reasons and not just related to his job. But he has fun with it because he tries to make it fun for the kids so that the kids will actually like pay attention, listen, and retain that information. And that's just so very Bobby.
Do you think Buck absolutely loved it the first time he saw Bobby do this, and he just wanted to sit in?
He wanted to be a kid sitting there listening
Just be like,
to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Eddie says like, Cap takes this really seriously.
Does Eddie know?
I don't think so. I don't know who would have clued him in.
Well, he
When
has
does-
to have known anyway.
Yeah,
at
he
some
has
point
to know at some point.
Because
Wait, it comes up soon, doesn't it? Like after next episode? Yeah, it comes up when they were investigating the robbery, and then he
yeah.
gets suspended, and that's why Chim is interim captain, and so everyone learns his whole business.
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh. So this is also another example of very subtle, we know, but Eddie doesn't know. So
Mhm.
it's
So he's like, he takes
foreshadowing
this. He's like, wow, he's taking this really seriously, and
it's foreshadowing that is going to come up again.
Yeah.
Ooh.
anyway.
To make this about Bobby and Michael again for the fourth time.
I think the brunt of what we have to talk about is our scene dissection, which is their confrontation and then the apology. So
Yeah.
they're two emotionally intense scenes.
Yeah.
Hey! Where's the fire?
So we start off with our scene that we're looking at, or scenes. Bobby has come back with the 118 from, I think they're refueling because they're just out on the streets. That's what the
Just
streets are
prowling
saying.
the streets.
Just prowling the streets. And he finds Harry's backpack and starts to, go over to him. And I don't think they're able to really fully finish their conversation besides Bobby saying, hey, I have to call your dad. He has to know where you are. And then Michael just storms in and is just very aggravated, to put it lightly. Basically tells Harry get in the car, we're going. No, wait, he says the funniest thing.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say he was so funny for this. He's like, maybe don't tweet about your secret location. Just calling your kid an idiot.
That was hilarious. Don't tweet your secret location or from your secret location, something like that. And it's basically just shooing him out of the fire station and starts stomping off.
And he ignores Bobby. He doesn't say anything.
Total
Look at
cold
him.
shoulder.
Yeah.
So
Bobby just senses a disturbance in the force. It's like, hey, trying to communicate that he was going to call, he just got back and that he was going to call him.
Mm-hmm.
Michael didn't give him any opportunity to even explain that or try to explain that further. He just comes in and grabs his kid and then leaves. Yeah.
Michael explained what happened to make him and Harry have that argument, which sounds more just like a
which wasn't an argument, which was a scolding.
Yeah. And then Harry, how did Harry get all the way over there is what I want to know.
Uber, I guess. Same way that Chris gets to Bucks.
Yeah, because it sounds like they were, near the Grant
They were
house.
in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Must be convenient to run away as a kid in the time of rideshare apps.
Yeah, I didn't give that too much attention until just now, and it occurred to me, but that is not the issue at hand. So basically, Harry was scolded for doing something actually very dangerous, and ran away to Bobby because Bobby is not his dad, and Michael just gives Bobby like the total cold shoulder until he like blows up at him, talking about how Bobby is filling Harry's head with reckless ideas, which, first of all, Harry's mother is a cop.
I know.
If you want to talk about filling head with reckless ideas, how about going after bad guys?
Which is funny because he points out, my kid should be into video games, comic books, and blah, 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 blah.
Which are all full of violence?
And the hero versus bad guys saving the day type of thing.
He just needed someone to take his frustrations out. And Bobby was the closest person. And I really feel like, just projecting all of that onto him instead of himself.
Yeah, because if you look at it logically, like you both just said, the video games and the comic books are so much about being a big damn hero, as he says. So it's not the content that Harry is consuming. It's the people that surround him as well. And that should be something to be proud of as well. So it kind of shows how clouded his judgment is in that moment. And I thought it kind of also harkened back a little bit to the themes of 202. I think that was 202 when they mentioned, or Harry mentioned earlier, when they went to the church and helped pass out water bottles and everything. And we talked a lot in that episode about, children and kind of their childlike wonder and maybe not totally understanding the gravity of certain dangerous situations and stuff like that. So to me, Michael pointing out the stuff about the video games and the comic books was focusing on how young and naive and kind of still sheltered that he wants Harry to be. But Harry has already been, privy and had his world opened up to the less fantastical stuff with the stuff like the earthquake and having Bobby in his life, but also having his mom from birth. So it's it just seems to me that Michael is just really clouded judgment. And if he took a step back, he would realize that all of those things, the videos, the comic books, and Athena and Bobby are playing the hero. But I think that speaks more to Michael's insecurity that he's not doing anything heroic like that because he's just an architect, which is impressive. But
yeah.
But it's not out there in the world saving things. So I think it's mostly about his insecurity in that way.
So that's when he triggers Bobby.
Yeah.
He says it's reckless. And I'm trying to pinpoint why that's such a trigger for Bobby. And is it just because he cares about the job so much and thinks that it's, important and it's not reckless because they're doing it for, a greater good? Yeah. They're not doing it for adrenaline, fun and giggles purposes. So that ticks him off. How does he respond?
I don't think Bobby really does much in the way of responding.
He says something that's a little sharp. Hold on. It's
it was curt, but I wouldn't put it out of bounds of fighting back with too much teeth, just kind of as a defense as opposed to
what was that?
I don't know.
Okay, making him feel like your kind of life is the only way that's worth living. Which is not Bobby's fault.
No.
Then he said, filling his head with reckless ideas. What we do is not reckless. Might be difficult to understand when you've never done the job.
Yeah, but like,
and then gives him a look.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say that's like well within his bounds to say it's not helping the matter, but Michael hasn't done the job, and it is hard to understand from an outside. But
yeah, but that just
I get it. I get
that
it.
just
Yeah.
ticks.
It added fuel to the fire.
Added fuel to the fire, and like it's very much not the Bobby who de-escalates things because he did hit a
because
nerve.
it was triggered.
Yeah. So, but then Michael comes back even worse and is like, "I'm not about to like raise my son in your image, basically, and like you're not his father."
Yeah,
like we get it. You're awesome, but you're not his father.
And the worst line that he says at the very end is like, they're talking about how, you know, Harry's with Bobby half the time now. So so Michael's like, maybe that makes me half a father, but it's still half more than you.
Yeah.
And that is, oh my God. Like to me, that's just so much worse than
and
what
it's like
Bobby said.
is still trying to communicate with him in that conversation because like, it's like, I'm just trying to be there for him. Like, I'm not trying to like have you build him in my image. I'm not trying to make him like me.
And it doesn't negate still having Michael there.
Right. But Michael's like, oh, because I'm not there. And it's like, he's just projecting all of his own insecurities onto Bobby.
Yeah, it just seemed like really out of line.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like it was.
Okay, so then Michael shows up later to apologize.
As he should.
Yeah. And then it's good of him to do. And he's like, I'm out of line and I shouldn't have lost my temper. And like, definitely not in your workplace.
Yeah.
And Bobby immediately like smiles. It's like all is forgiven. Like he just wants open, clear communication from people.
So healthy of him.
Kind of like his son, who also forgives very easily. But yeah, so he's like, your timing was not like great. And yeah, you struck a nerve, but basically says that like he'll back off if he's overstepping because he doesn't want to get in between like a father and his kids.
And that is his number one concern or priority. And like we've seen that before with this is kind of where we get into Bobby's insecurities, right? And we see it has been mentioned before in that episode. I keep forgetting which episode it was. Was it the New Beginnings when Athena's parents come over and Athena tells Bobby like, you can't be best buddy Bob?
Yeah.
And, so we've already established that. But so we start seeing that's where a lot of Bobby's insecurities in
his hesitance
to not overstep, because he is so aware that he's not Harry or May's dad. And the line that breaks my heart, he's not his dad. He's no one's dad. And so it's like he wants to be so bad, but he knows that's not his place. At this point. He acknowledges like Bobby has a lot of self-awareness here, and he acknowledges that he tells Michael, and it's a lot for him to kind of confide in this as well. So I think, yes, Bobby really is looking for that open communication and just kind of like wanting to level with Michael, and acknowledges that he's overcompensating for not being Michael. So that's why he wants to be best buddy Bobby. It's so sad.
Yeah. It's so sweet though, because Michael is like, but you're about to be a stepdad. So like basically, you know, opening up the door that Athena already did, you know, because she's been trying to encourage him to, you know, take on more of that role, because that is where they're going. That's where the family is transitioning to.
Yeah.
And now Michael is on board with that. He's like, you know, you're going to be their stepdad. So basically, like, we got to figure out how to do this together and like be a team and work on your bad cop.
Which is funny because you would think that Athena would be. Well, I guess that does imply that Athena is the bad cop.
I think she normally is, probably.
Where have we heard you both can't be good or bad cop?
Someone said that.
Chimney said that too.
Fucking Eddie.
Yeah.
Right? Oh
yeah.
My God.
Yeah.
My eyes literally twitching.
Sorry, that just occurred to me.
I hope the camera picked that up.
I was just
I saw it. There's something.
Where have we heard that before? Like, They both can't be bad cop. Uh-huh.
I was like, I know some bitch said it to Buck and Eddie. I know someone did.
That was Chimney. So in that conversation, we do finally get to the root of the issue, which is Michael and Glenn breaking up. And
also just like, what? I know we don't know like the full story of like why they broke up, but for like the reason he mentioned, like he doesn't think I'm fun anymore. Glenn was literally a rock. Like he had no personality. He was so boring. Please.
Except that he agreed with Athena on stuff.
Yeah,
that's all we know. I doubt that was like the inciting thing. But yeah, so it's explained then that is why, you know, Michael was having all of these insecurity issues, especially with wrestling with telling Athena, not telling Athena how to tell Athena, because that's basically the man that he blew up her life for. So to take like ownership of that, and I think he was just really, I think Michael was probably feeling a lot of the same way that Athena was feeling at the very beginning of this season, of the whole like being a failure and everything like that, and like the optics from the outside, how that looks like. Michael couldn't keep his marriage together because he's gay, but now that he's in a relationship with a man, he couldn't even keep that together. And it's just, wow, who does that sound like?
Wow.
Starts with ends with a D. So I think that, you know, the way that Bobby confided in Michael about how he's overcompensating, Michael then, you know, tit for tat, does the same for Bobby as well, and tells Bobby about, you know, the breakup, and that he hasn't even told Athena, which I think surprised Bobby a little bit. And I think this opportunity for them to have a heart to heart and see things eye to eye really allows them to develop a better bond. And we'll see that in future seasons too. And I don't think we've gotten enough of it. But it's really sweet because then it does show like a true, like trying to work together to create a functioning family unit. Do we have anything else to say about Bobby and Michael?
No, I don't think so. I just think it's really sweet apology makeup, like moves their relationship forward, and Bobby's pie and some ice cream probably makes everything better.
Yeah. I do love though, like at the very beginning of when Michael comes to apologize, Bobby offers him pie and he's like, no. And then it's only when he
finds out about the breakup.
Yeah. He's like, are you sure you don't want some pie? He's like, only if there's ice cream to go with
it. Which is so valid.
Yeah. And I just
especially if it's so apple pie. Sweet. You're going to make me eat apple pie and no ice cream?
Mistakes.
Jail.
Yeah. But I just thought that was really sweet.
It's very cute.
And it's kind of like the pie is a peace offering.
Branch.
Yeah.
An olive pie.
Ew.
Why does that sound like something someone made before?
I'm sure someone has. Let's move on to Maddie and Chimney, and they're kind of, I don't know, related. So we get another Buckley sibling scene, which are
too few and far between.
I know, but they're always like my favorites because they're so funny. They're so cute.
They have great sibling chemistry.
They do.
Oliver and Jennifer Love Hewitt, like I just so believe it.
I wonder if they did a chemistry read. Like I think not, because if they were like Jennifer Love Hewitt wants to be on the show, sure.
Like we got Jennifer Love Hewitt and everyone else is like, cool.
Yeah. But they have great chemistry.
Like sibling chemistry. Yeah.
But yeah, so they're having dinner. Something.
It's either lunch or dinner, but it's at a diner.
They're out to eat, and
I
Buck
think it's daytime, so I think it's lunch.
And Buck is looking at places to live.
Also foreshadowing. Well, it's not really foreshadowing. It's like you should move in then.
Oh,
Maddie says that, so it's like as like a please get out of my house.
Oh, right. Okay.
When does he get the apartment with Allie? Because she like is not there.
Isn't it the last 2 episodes somewhere?
It's got to be soon.
But yeah, so he's looking at places, and I guess is he thinking that they're gonna move together?
I don't know.
Is that what I'm gathering from like how he was acting? And she's like, you should take it. And he's kind of like, what do you mean I should. And
I know.
she's like, well, you're sleeping on my couch. And I'm pretty sure he's just kind of like, you don't want to be in your apartment. I live with you right now. I see that you fucking hate it there. Like, what do you mean I should move?
Yeah, sorry, just pointing, sleeping on her couch.
He does like couches.
Sleeping on her couch that he and Eddie helped move into the apartment.
Oh my God. Add that to the notes for the couch theory episode. Because everyone's like, couch theory starts in season 6. And we're like, no.
Not even season 2. It's season 1, baby.
Season 1?
Yeah, Abby breaks up with him on the couch.
Jesus Christ.
I wish I was joking.
I thought we were going to talk about it starting with like them moving the couch into Maddie's because it's like,
well, yes,
fork found in kitchen, them like their out of office relationship starting with moving a couch.
Well, yes, but like couch theory as it pertains to book specifically
okay.
starts in season 1.
So I don't know. Where am I going with this? I got distracted by couch theory.
Sorry.
It's okay.
They're at the diner.
Okay, so they're having that conversation, and he knows that she has a lot of issues being in that apartment, right? Because PTSD.
Obviously.
Who wouldn't have issues being in the apartment they were abducted from and saw their potential significant other. They thought they were dead as they got drug out of there. Yeah, anyway, so it's just like constant. It's just like a constant reminder. And she's like, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Ross from Friends. I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. Yes. So that's kind of like her spiel the whole episode. And she's like, I'm fine. I'm in therapy. I'm talking about it. I'm tired of talking about it. I'm really believing. I'm like, I know no one's going to believe me, but I'm actually doing fine. And it's like if she says it enough that it's actually going to be true because she wants to be past this point so badly. She does not want to be in the point where she, still has to be pushing through the trauma and working hard to get to the other side, to the new beginning. Again,
it's her convincing herself, like she's like, once my life is normal again, I will feel normal. And I think there is something to that because at some point you do have to get back into like your normal and typical routines.
Never gonna feel normal again.
Oh, was that an Eddie thing?
What are you scared of? That I'm never gonna feel normal again. Yes.
Why do we find so much fucking Eddie where there's barely any fucking Eddie?
Well, there's a lot of Eddie and Maddie parallels just
that's
like
true.
Constantly.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think that is a valid thought process to want to return to normalcy and start rebuilding from, something from routine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
and it's good to have normalcy, but it's not good to literally just bury your head under the covers and think that,
it has to be a compromise. Like you can return to routine, but you also have to like acknowledge that like it's not going to feel the same for a while yet.
And I don't think she's letting herself feel it is the thing. Like I think she is trying very hard to distract herself and not do that. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that is how you have to work through trauma, is you have to feel all of the feelings that come along with it and work through all of them. And
like everybody's checking in on her, like even at dispatch. And I think she's just kind of like, enough.
Yeah.
Even though like Chimney's is really cute and he's all like, how's your first day? And she's just like, stop checking on me internally, not outwardly. Especially with when she and Josh are talking about, they're trying to have a makeup first date that they didn't get to have. Mm-hmm. And so there's also this additional season theme, pressure added to the situation where there wasn't beforehand. So it's like, well, we got to make it good enough so that we can move past what happened. And that's just like, I think at the end, like Chimney's like, that's too much to put onto a bowl of pasta. However, pasta fixes everything. So
a little bit. Also, everything. I realize I just unintentionally gave Josh's whole speech. So I guess we don't really need to talk about that.
Yeah.
But he basically says everything that I just said about like, you need to let yourself feel it. And you can't magically just wish yourself better. Just like someone with, like he says, like, you don't have a broken bone and just walk it off. You can't just like wish that better.
Yeah, I think the poignant line there was pretending you're not hurt isn't the same as healing.
Mm-hmm.
However, lucky for Maddie, it's her first days back at dispatch are, I think, cursed because her first day was the earthquake, and her first day back here is the power goes out. Maddie's first days back at dispatch are cursed because she is given an opportunity to kind of think about other things. So work provides that distraction for her. And I think at one point Josh is like, "Are you sure you don't want to take another couple of weeks?" And she's like, "I don't. I'd rather be here." So yeah, moving on to Chimney.
Who's the opposite? A little
Exactly.
bit.
I was just about to say that.
Chimney is the opposite. Hen is visiting Chimney while he is trying to rearrange his whole closet, I guess. Doing something that I should be doing, actually.
Right?
Which is like figuring out
Marie Kondoing.
Marie Kondoing.
Yeah. Trying to figure out what sparks joy, what shirt to keep. But there is a point where he does say he's got multiple weeks of vacation time, and he would rather be taking his vacation time to rest, especially because he says that after the rebar, he immediately went back as soon as he could.
Yeah, he really did. So it's like he's convalescing and he wants something to occupy his time, but he's also like taking the time to heal physically.
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of opposite because Maddie didn't have as many like physical injuries. Hers are a little more mental. Chimney, obviously, like it's both on both sides.
I mean, I was about to say, I'm pretty sure she got stabbed.
She got stabbed too. She just doesn't work a physical job.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
But like you saw Chimney was still like dealing with the stab wound.
Dealing with healing, I'm sure she probably is to an extent too.
Yeah. But the focus, I think, for Maddie is more like healing mentally and emotionally. For Chimney, it's a little more
physical.
It's a little more physical, but there is still a lot of psychological healing that he has to do as well. But he is actually taking the time for it. And Hen asks,
"Oh yeah,
if Maddie still sparks joy," and Chim says, "Always." They are the rom-com couple.
I know.
Of 911. It's just like everything about them is just like cute aggression.
The only
very demure, very cutesy.
The only what?
Straight couple. And then I was like, wait, Bobby and Athena.
Bobby and Athena also get rights. But that's mom and dad.
Yeah, that's mom and dad. Two straight couples with rights.
In all of network television. So yeah, I think he is just like chomping at the bit though to go back to work because he is, he's a first responder and that's how they are. It's like, how many times have we heard firefighters make the worst patients?
Yeah.
Right? So even though he is taking the time to like heal, he is very much like, I'm so bored, and is, watching TV, bored out of his mind, and then is like, oh my God, a terrible thing has happened to 911 dispatch. This is great for me.
It's like his personal reality show.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Like, this show's going to be great.
It is so funny because he's like, this might be a better show. Like for someone who is so pop culture oriented. And he even has the Ferris Bueller quote, like, if you don't stop and look around once in a while, you might miss it, or whatever that quote is.
It's also the way that he like says jokes out loud to himself. That just, I don't know. I just love him so much. He's so cute.
It gives the comedic main character.
Yeah.
And with that, so because he's watching that happen on the news and he's, keeping up to date, he gets to play the hero that he always wants to and has gotten better about like recognizing that he is a hero, even if he's not in the action. Right. So this is him being the hero from further away.
Talk about improvisation.
Right. Because I love seeing his thought process for this, where he's just like, think. And it's like, and I was confused for a while, or maybe I just didn't pick up on it. But the reason they couldn't get any water pressure was I was watching that episode and I was like, why did they cut to this person like running, running into the
hydrant
in the cart because
blown.
the hydrant. Yeah.
Yeah.
It took me a couple of watches to realize that. So he's problem solving, and improvising and using his resources. Got to take this out, but God, that's such a Hufflepuff thing to do. Calling in a favor.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
It's like, let me go through my Rolodex of community.
Mm-hmm. And also just like kind of interesting to see like the jump from where we last saw Tommy Rocco with Chimney Begins, because we don't really, because we see them kind of like
he hugs him.
Yeah, like they have a truce, I guess.
Yeah, but you can tell that they like do not talk because he's like, it's Chimney. Remember me? Are you still working at this place? Like, it's very much like, I have your phone number because we used to be coworkers. Like not because they like keep in contact. And I feel like Tommy probably just owes him as many favors as he wants because he saved his life.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's what characters or people like Chimney do. They rely on the community, and like especially if they kind of collect favors that they're owed, right? And then every so often they come calling and is like, hey, remember that thing that I did for you? Can you do this for me?
Normally not for themselves though.
Exactly. It's for others. It's not it's not a self-serving thing, because like
I was like, because Slytherins do that too.
This is the evidence for Chimney being a Hufflepuff, right? Like number one evidence on top of everything else.
Should we talk about the dinner?
Yeah. Sure. The dinner makes me sad because it's so like awkward and stilted and so not them, because we've talked about how for so much of their relationship, I mean, especially as it started like friends, like it started as friendship, like it was so effortless and easy for them. And that's, I think, why this dinner scene is so kind of off-putting, because they don't know how to act with each other, because they also don't know how to act within themselves.
Yeah.
So there's one thing to say like you're trauma bonded, but like this,
it's bad when you're talking about the weather. And like, I get that talking about rain in LA is kind of like a novelty, but he was
that's scraping the bottom of the barrel
for conversation topics. But I think this is a good example of how like you can talking about shared traumas can be really helpful, but ultimately you can't heal shared traumas together. Like you still have to do
the work on
your own way. Yeah. Yeah.
But it helps having that support and that like
yeah. And I think that's kind of what they're realizing. I mean, Chimney more than Maddie, because she's just kind of like, the magic's gone or something, or like it's like we're too traumatized, basically. Yeah, this was too much
at this moment
for us to be able to get past. And I think Chimney is very much just like, I think in his head he's like, we just need to
press pause
on the relationship part and continue to be friends and be there for each other, but like we got to work through our own stuff. And I kind of feel like that's where he's at, and she seems very much like she does not believe him.
Yeah. And
because I think it's just like, I don't know. I feel like she's blaming herself for him getting hurt. And there's just like so much residual trauma from her, trauma with Doug that's there too. So it's like, yes, he is traumatized, but she's dealing with a deluge of other things on top of it, compounding it.
I think there is a lot of guilt there too, because she talks about how, she's haunted. She hates going back to her apartment because she's haunted by the image and the memory of him lying on the cold hard ground. Sorry, I'm going to do that every time. And so I think there's a lot of guilt there. Just so much anger, probably like under all of the depression, but so much anger at Doug for having stolen her new beginning that she was so excited about. Finally. And then just again, like a one step forward, two steps back sort of thing. So like Doug is out of her life forever now. However, now she has to deal with the fallout of it. And I did like that they were able to kind of commiserate together and truly open up. So we see that like genuine friendship still intact there, which is lovely. And I think is why their relationship will always work, because they have such a strong friendship foundation.
It's like the best relationships are built on friendships.
Imagine that. And slow burns, you know? So they're able. Chimney is who she's always able to be the most honest with, right? Like she doesn't even tell Buck exactly what she's feeling, but it's only with Chimney.
It's like that's her little brother /
Of course, and she doesn't want to worry him more / pseudo son,
right? Yeah. Because she was parentified, but like of her own accord. Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why she is able to open up with Chimney, besides the going through that whole ordeal kind of together, is because he established himself as her safe space, security from the very beginning. I was reading a fic. I think it was one of the whips that I was telling you about, and it was talking about how Chimney was like nervous for something. I think the first time that they sent Ji-Yun to daycare in this fic, and Chimney was like nervous and kind of blubbering, and Maddie was kind of like shutting down because Chimney realized she was also trying to be strong for Chimney, and he had to tell her like, no, it's okay, you don't have to be strong, we can be a mess together, and that makes us stronger. Again, with that open communication. It's a really cute fic, but it's not finished yet. And I also thought that Maddie discussing about how depressed she was and just kind of overwhelmed and wanting to throw the covers over herself. I'm sorry, but that imagery leads me directly to season 3, episode 1 with Buck. And I'm like, oh, so it's a Buckley family trait, this kind of depression. Got it. Sorry, I just had to bring Buck into that for just a moment. Just because like the cover's over my head and then it gets pulled off, and there's more we could discuss with that. But so Chimney and Maddie decide that it's not goodbye, they just need a minute. And then they share a kiss. And I'm so sad, angry, mad that their first 2 kisses, one is in a hospital and one is basically a goodbye, see you later kiss. Boo, tomato, tomato, tomato.
And then they made them get married in a hospital after having her fuck ass father walk her down the aisle.
So that's
this is going on the list of unforgivable sins. Anyway,
this is why Madney needs a wedding redo, because you can't have their relationship stop in a hospital and then married in a hospital, because it's just like, let them be happy without trauma.
I feel like they had enough trauma in that episode where they did get married to just have a regular wedding. But they were like, no, we're going to do it because it's so them.
I want to see a vow renewal season 13.
You'd be like, so we're going to have a like combo 40 feet underground under a fire truck suspended from a truck ladder buddy wedding? Because that's so them.
Wow. That's so true. Made it out alive, but I think I lost it.
Yeah, I don't know. I hate that reasoning.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's a really soft, sweet kiss, but it just like it makes me so frustrated for them.
Yeah.
That like
it's a really, really, really good scene, but I hate it because it, I hate it for the characters that they're going through this and that they can't have the happiness that they were, building with each other.
Yeah.
But oh my God, once again here to talk about Kenneth Choi. When he has the watery eyes, when like he realizes when they're talking about how when she says like, I think like we're never going to get it back. Right. Mm-hmm. He says that to her saying, yeah, whatever we had here is gone.
You can see their hearts break. And you know what? Jennifer Love Hewitt does this too. They both act with their eyes and their tear ducts specifically. Because it's just like the way they are able to
Kindred
emote. They are kindred criers. That might be one of the reasons why they work so well.
Yeah.
Like they do just have a lot of chemistry just generally. But like the way they're able to emote so deeply with the status of their relationship like this is...
I think it just kills me specifically his kind of emotional reaction. Because I feel like Chimney could be in a place where he could start very like slowly dating, but she is not. And so he is doing what's best for her. It's back to before they agreed to go on a date where he was like, you know, we're just friends. But if you ever decide that you want to date, like I'm free.
And he puts the ball in her court.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll wait for you.
Yeah.
Gosh, no, the way that he's
really sad.
The way that he's always like, I'll wait for you, basically, and then also goes after her. It is like a rom-com. That's the airport, like running through the airport thing, right?
We were on a break.
Did we need to talk anything about Hen? Because it's so hard because it was an ensemble episode. So we had like everybody had their shining moments, but I wouldn't say Hen really had like an arc.
No, she didn't really have an arc. I will just say that Hen is always going the extra mile for her patients, right? But I feel
she
like
never gives up.
For families, especially mothers, she has this like, I cannot give up on this person, right? And she fights for them like they were one of her own. You know what I mean? So it just hits her a lot closer because I think she, like we say a lot, she compartmentalizes really well, except for when it doesn't. I think, these kinds of things just really hit home for her. And she was giving her compressions for 14 minutes.
Yeah.
She's going to have to call out of work. She's going to be in so much pain.
Her poor arms.
Yeah. Aisha acting her ass off.
Yes. And this scene where she just kind of like collapses afterwards, like in relief, always reminds me a little bit of the
when she collapses in grief.
Yeah. With the ambulance hit. And it's just like, oh, what did we say? The power that Aisha has, where it's like the opposite of like being an empath. It's like she is like sending out these vibes, and you have to feel them.
I forget how we put it. I think we did really well in Hen Begins explaining that. So
yeah, I
go back and listen to us being better with words.
I think it was one of our promo clips, so it should be on socials.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like that. I think moms and children are always a soft spot for Hen because she is a mom herself, and I always wonder if like what would be going through her head when the compartmentalization breaks. If she's thinking of that time where she was saved by the paramedics when she was like 16.
Yeah, maybe.
Because what was it in Dosed when she said like again, we talked about it. We said it better.
Basically, like she survived because of the care they gave her.
Yeah.
But she survived because of the care they showed.
She survived because of their skill, but she survived because of the care that they gave her. So I think that always is in the back of her mind with something like that as well.
I also think just a cute little note to just remember that Hen and Athena are friends again is her goofing around at the like demonstration with the kids.
Yeah. And
she's like, I forget what the words were to begin the sentence, but basically like, it's an emergency. Harry didn't do his homework.
Harry Grant didn't do his homework.
Such aunt behavior. It's very cute.
Oh, it's adorable. It's so cute. Yeah. So I think that's kind of it for Hen. Yeah. Anything else about Buck?
Yeah, that's a good point. We should have talked about her since we talked about everyone else.
Yeah. And I guess like more of what we have to say about Buck and Eddie will be in.
Yeah. So it's time for that gay shit. Or should it be like Italian? It's that that gay shit. Again, not a ton to talk about because neither one of them had an arc this episode or a lot of time on screen together, except for them just doing their jobs. But we get to see a patented Buck freaking out because Eddie is in danger, even though he's like freaking out because Eddie's doing the same fucking thing that he would do, but just Eddie got to it before he could do it.
And
Eddie can't put himself in danger like that.
No, but like Buck acknowledges because he says over to Bobby, like, I feel like if I did that, you would yell at me. Mm-hmm. Which, like, Bobby is just kind of like,
I mean, yeah. But
because Buck's his son.
But Buck doesn't know that difference yet. No. And these are the things that he's cataloging in his mind that are going to build up and be relevant soon. But anyway, we're not here to talk about father-son stuff. We're here to talk about gay shit. Yeah, so we get to see Buck freaking out, which, like, I'm so sorry. I love whenever the other puts their lives in danger and the other one's freaking out. I just eat that shit up.
It's so great.
It's delicious.
This is kind of an interesting scenario, too, because, like, Buck was not able to... The ladder broke while Buck was on it. Mm-hmm. They cut to Eddie for his reaction, first of all. But I guess it was, like, low enough to the ground that he could, like, jump down.
Yeah.
And then
with his
Eddie...
40 feet long legs.
He was probably only, like, 3 inches off the ground, let's be real. You know, with the ladder all the way up. Like, just like, boop, done. They're spring loaded.
Why am I picturing like a pogo stick?
It's what he is. So Eddie then kind of has Buck's back because Buck wasn't able to make that save. So that's one of the reasons why Eddie goes up there. I'm sure he's also thinking about Christopher, kind of going back to what Hen said during the earthquake call, I think in 202, where Hen was like, you know, if my kid were stuck somewhere, I would want the people to do that, like, and that's why she went after the girl. So I think that's kind of part of Eddie's thinking, but also like having Buck's back because Buck wasn't able to do it, and then Buck wants to have Eddie's back, and it's just like you can't keep having each other's back and forth. Someone's got to make the save. Then they're just going around in circles.
So then at the very emotional scene that we've talked about several times now, where I can never remember like patients' names. I'm so sorry.
So that's Sonia and
Sonia. Thank you,
Roger.
Sonia. So back where we've arrived at the hospital and they've called it on Sonia, and they have that shot,
crazy shot
that we talked about at the beginning, which I think we did talk about Buck being like right behind him, having his back.
Again.
But then when her heartbeat comes back, Eddie is like, what did he say? That's amazing.
It's a miracle.
He said
Eddie didn't say it's a miracle.
Oh, who said it?
Buck.
Yeah, Eddie said that was amazing. And Buck was like, that was a miracle.
Flutters his long ass eyelashes like a Disney fucking princess.
It's a gross look.
It's so flirtatious. Like, I'm pretty sure we could pull several clips of him doing that, like flirting with women. That same thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, that was a miracle. Buck, time and place to flirt. Mother just died and came back to life. Back it away. But yeah, so there's that. And then, you know, Buck turns after he's, you know, up in Eddie's face to say that, and then is comforting, supporting Hen because, you know, she just broke down now that she actually saved her. She saved
life,
her. Yeah. So, you know, she's gone through it like with tears of relief, and Bobby's on one side of her, you know, with like an arm around her, and Buck's on the other side. And when Eddie finally turns around to face them, he, instead of like going to the front of Hen or any other, there's so much open area to touch Hen, just literally stands exactly where he was, turned around, puts his hand on Buck. Because Buck needs comfort right now.
Yeah, it's like through osmosis. He's comforting Hen. Yes, this will pass through Buck.
The energy will
They're
pass
sharing a
through.
moment together.
Yeah. That's like a little family, but also,
Yeah.
come on.
It's very cute. But like, and these are just like the subconscious shit they do that drives me fucking crazy. They can attest that I watched this clip earlier to remember and write down exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And I literally just lost it. I can't remember what I said. I was just like, I can't fucking stand them.
Yeah.
Like, why are they like this?
Okay. It's not exactly slow burn per se, but the line with no, that was amazing. No, that was a miracle. It's kind of interesting to me because, I mean, we know Eddie was raised religious, right? And we don't really see that there's a lot that he connects with religiously. So the whole bringing up the miracle thing, I don't think so far yet we've really seen him connecting in to religion in any major sense or anything like that. So we get that reference to like, no, that was a miracle. And then later on, it's later because it's at the neighborhood gas leak call when, you know, he saves the little boy and Bobby says something to him like, you know, you just, or was it Buck or Bobby that was like, yeah, how'd you do that sort of thing? And I think it was Bobby that said that. And Eddie's just like, I don't know. I just did it. And I prayed a lot. And I think that's like one of the only times that we actually hear him talk about like actively praying for stuff. And and I kind of want to just make a pin in that for us and anyone listening, because, you know, where we are now in like season 8, we know that he's not like he's not really religious in any sense.
Yeah. But maybe as we go through, we can like see what the pattern is.
Yeah, see what the pattern is.
Yeah.
And specifically, I want to know if there's anything between now or between this episode and 2:16, 2:17, whether that has anything to do with like religious, like praying, him looking for signs. Because we kind of know he sees signs with like Shannon thinking she's pregnant and all of that stuff. And I'm wondering if like kind of the break, like the full break for that is after Shannon dies. So just something
he doesn't believe in miracles anymore.
And neither does Chris now. So, so I just want to like keep a lookout for that, because I thought that would be kind of interesting to track. So, because that was like one of the only times we've actually heard him actively praying in like present, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't like hear him praying, but he talked about praying. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I have something that's also slow burn-ish, but this is also a stretch. This is me like reading into things and finding like mirrors and parallels where like they probably didn't intend it, but I see it because I always see a lot of parallels between Maddie and Eddie.
Yeah.
So back to that talk with Josh at the end of Maddie's shift. And if you'd go back and you listen to that talk and you just kind of think about it from like as if he was talking to Eddie about Shannon dying. I found it interesting. I don't know why. Something blasted in my brain. I think specifically, it was like the start where he was like, or you're not ready yet. And I was like, ready for what? And I'm like, well, not as we've established. It's not that Shannon was the love of his life and he can't move on from her because she was the love of his life. It's he can't move on from her because of the guilt that he feels for so many reasons, but one of them being that repressed, latent, you know, homosexuality. So I think there's a couple things that I wanted to say. I just need to leave what happened behind me, Maddie says. Or I'll never be able to move forward. And then he says you can't walk it off, you know, like a broken leg. No one would ever say that. And ignoring an injury will just compound the pain.
Yeah.
And pretending you're okay doesn't like doesn't make that the case. You're not letting yourself feel it. That was the thing. You're not letting yourself feel it.
Got it.
That I was like, he's not letting himself feel his actual feelings for romantic partners, or like address the actual feelings he has, or address his actual feelings about Shannon and Shannon's passing. Like, he just doesn't want to look at it.
No, he doesn't. He just wants to move on past it. Blinders on.
But like, buddy, it's been how many years now? It's time to look at it and take a hammer to that fucking glass closet.
Time to unpack that skeleton in your closet, bro.
Please salt and burn the body. Like, I got our one in.
Wow.
Anyway, it's kind of a stretch, but I think maybe it was because it's Josh. Just was like, wow, if he had this same conversation with Eddie, it would still be relevant, but for very different reasons.
Yeah. But Eddie would never have that conversation with Josh.
No. But yeah, anyway, I think that's it for Slowburn.
Well, I had a thing.
Intrigued.
It's Eddie related.
Okay, well, that's fine. Mine was just Eddie related.
Mine was just Eddie too.
Well, no.
Speak your truth.
There's no truth. It's just a shit. Like, if I could, like, I'm going to call it like a shit post.
Okay.
Because you know how, like, the Buck Tommies were like invisible string theory, for like Buck and Tommy, because I guess he like looks up or whatever, and it's that whole thing. And then I'm sitting here like, that's nothing. Tommy saved Eddie, technically, if you really want to call it invisible string theory. Because if they really were going to go through with the Buck and Eddie thing, I mean, and you know how he's like, oh yeah, I prayed a lot. I'm like, oh yeah, Tommy, answer your prayers.
It's Chimney.
I know it's
all
Chimney.
Of that invisible string theory goes back to Chimney. So like,
yeah,
that's so funny.
Yeah.
Still coming out as a Tommy Eddie shipper.
How dare you say that? I still think that's funny.
That's so funny to think about, though. I mean, that's not more of a stretch to say than me being like, what I said at the beginning about like the Eddie about to like finally be able to exit and then had to like stay in place because of Tommy coming in with his water. And he was like, seriously? I already hated that man.
Oh my God.
It's a very serious thing that I said at the beginning of the episode. So,
oh my God.
Speaking of gay things, next week, make sure you tune back in because it is our couch theory episode. You asked for it. We did it. Well, we will have done it by the time you're hearing it.
You asked for it. We deliver like a furniture store.
I think we're done for tonight.
Why do you let me speak?
I'm not amused.
God. You're smiling.
No, I'm not.
There's literally camera proof of you, Priscilla.
That was one of the stupidest things I've ever said.
I don't know. I thought it was funny.
I'm so glad. I'm telling you, when I'm on here, brain to mouth filter does not exist.
Oh my God.
Anyways, remember, don't duck and cover under a fire truck.
But if you do,
take a buddy with you. Thank you for listening to the Buddy System podcast from start to finish.
We literally cannot shut up about 911, so please come talk to us on your favorite social media platform.
We're at Buddy System Pod everywhere. That's BUDDIE System Pod.
Leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to get a personal shout out in the next episode. The Buddy System is a Nerd Virgin Media production featuring music from Divinity.
Can't get enough of the buddies? Subscribe to our Patreon for access to exclusive content and our Discord community.
Catch you next time. And don't forget,
Bring a buddy with you.